بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله مرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. Alhamdulillah. So yesterday we spoke about some of the battles that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took place in, mainly the battle of Raji', which was after the battle of Uhud. So today we go on to another battle which the Prophet ﷺ, or expedition that he goes on, and this is called Dhat al-Riqa', the expedition of the rags. And this was in the 4th year after Hijri, and some say it was later and it was after Khandaq and after in the 7th year of Hijri, and some say it was earlier, and both give the evidences for those that say it was earlier, nor those that say it was later. So anyway, we see now that the Banu Nadir were expelled from Medina, and so it was around this time as well that the Prophet ﷺ told Zayd bin Thabit to go and learn Hebrew, the language of the Jews in Medina, and other tribes that were around in Arabia that they spoke Hebrew. So the Prophet ﷺ wanted somebody who can speak to them, and somebody who can carry his messages to them, calling them to Islam. And so they say that Zayd bin Thabit went and he learnt the language of Hebrew within 15 days. He went and within 15 days he was fluent, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and he was known to be extremely intelligent. He had a strong memory. He was one of the strongest Huffaz, one of the strongest in memorizing the Quran. And when it came to in the Khalifa of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, it was Abu Bakr and Uthman, Abu Bakr and Umar chose Zayd bin Thabit to compile the Quran, seeing as though he was the strongest in the Quran. So he was incredibly clever, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, but he learnt a language and fluent in that language within 15 days. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to ask him to write the messages for him in Hebrew that he would send, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we see then the battle of or the expedition of Dhat al-Riqa', the expedition of the rags. This was a month after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam banished and expelled the Banu Nadir, and others say it was later, which was in the 7th year after Khaybar. And so this was due to the treachery of the tribes of the Najd, where, as we spoke about, the Prophet ﷺ sent to Amr ibn Tufail, that he sent messengers to go and call them to Islam, and they killed the messengers that the Prophet ﷺ had sent. So now the Prophet ﷺ goes out to wage war on them, and so 70 Muslims were killed, as if we remember. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he goes out with between 400 to 700 men, and he leaves Medina under the authority of Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, and he himself ﷺ goes out with his soldiers, and so he goes out to fight with the tribes of the Muharib and the Banu Tha'lab. The ﷺ, he goes with 400 to 700 men, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he enters the Najd, which is the area where they were, and he set up camp. And when he set up camp there, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the tribes that he was there to fight, that fear entered into their heart, and they fled and they left their stations, and no fighting took place. But so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam returned back to Medina with his men. The reason why we mention this, and why Shaykh Sa'id Ramadan Bhuti mentions it in his book, is that many things took place there which are quite important to mention on this expedition with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From amongst those, Abu Musa al-Ashari, he narrates that when they went out with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on this expedition, he says it was about 6 to a camel, that they didn't have enough camels to walk. So about 6 people to each camel, so they had to take turns in riding, so you were walking for a long period of time. And he says that their feet were wounded and bleeding, and he says that his toenails fell off, and so they began to wrap rags around their feet in order that their feet don't get any more damaged and bleed any more than they already were. But you can imagine Abu Musa al-Ashari is telling us that his feet were so wounded that the blood was dripping from them, and that his toenails had fallen off, and they would wrap these rags around their feet, and that's where the expedition gets the name from, that the expedition of the rags, due to what took place. And they say Abu Musa al-Ashari, after he narrated this, he regretted narrating this hadith because he had told others about his good deeds, but also at the same time he was telling about other people's good deeds. So alhamdulillah, he himself didn't want to show off, and that's why he didn't want to mention this narration, but he's actually talking about the others, those that were with him as well. And so at this battle as well, this is where the Prophet ﷺ prays Salat al-Khawf